So we begin with this mirror image. I've been looking at this for a long time. I think this is one of the first images I started to put together when we went to the Dargah sometime in 2016, I suppose. And it's all about the veils here and the mirror. So the mirrors and the veil become the metaphor and the imagery for what we see here. So let me go ahead and read this paragraph. And I was just editing that a few days after the last session, and that turned out to be exactly what we need to start with. So in this passage, Ibn Arabi says, "Learn, God assist you and me, that God said, no, indeed, there will be on that day the ones veiled from their Lord. And he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, God has 70 veils of light and light blocking." So light blocking here is zulm, and zulm, so Z-U-L-M, often translated as darkness, but it's actually light blocking. If they were to be unveiled, the glory of his face would burn whatever his sight perceived in his creation. Consider how thin, nigh invisible, these veils are, and just what they are concealing. He said, we are closer to him than the jugular vein, despite the presence of these veils, which are preventing our sight from seeing him in this great proximity. So Ibn Arabi says elsewhere that great proximity is a veil as much as great distance. And because of these veils, we do not see any entity, Ayn. She is too veiled from us. So therefore, the Ayn, the who you are, the point around which all of this existence is clothing you, is not to be seen, cannot be seen. So he, exalted, said, we are closer to him than you are, but you do not see. And it is a good thing, O Lord of us, that we do not see you, and we do not see the veils. We are behind a veil of veils, and you are positionally to us at the place of the jugular vein, or nearer to us than we are. This proximity is a reason for a lack of vision on our part, why our vision does not connect to you. Human beings do not see themselves, so how can we see you while you are closer to us than ourselves? The utmost proximity is a veil, just as the utmost distance is a veil. So way over in about page 7,000 or something, Ibn Arabi just drops everything and says it as clearly as possible. He says, who looks at the mirror? The mirror is shaped as a mineral, an angel, a human, a horse. You are the image. And then he says, clearer than this, one cannot be. So this is his clear statement of how the system works, how this place works. And then he says, so the image speaks up and says, here I am. And even though I am from your brilliant radiance, from your tajalli, and flush against your image, as the hadith says, still you are not me and I am not you. So I've always seen that passage as coming as quite triumphant in a way, maybe masculine and triumphant. And so that's clearly Ibn Arabi has gotten to a place where he can have the triumph of the image looking back and saying, here I am. But certainly as a child and for a long time after that, this position of triumph was not mine. Instead, if you think about the mirror and who is on this side of the mirror, as it were, dimensionally, and the image we are on this side, that's a separation. So this separation is something that is the basis of our yearnings, and our separation drives us to find that which is no longer separate, to find this unity, to find this return. And so Ibn Arabi looks at this return and love as two different modes. One is Adamic, so based on Adam, masculine, male, and the other is Eve, based on Eve, and so feminine and female. And so this page here, this slide, we'll look at the Adamic, or the what Ibn Arabi calls the yearning for Adam, for Eve. So Adam is incomplete when Eve is removed from him. So his longing is for himself because she was a part of him. God filled the place in Adam from which Eve was extracted with passion for her. So this vacuum that Adam feels when Eve is removed, that vacuum is the passion that he feels. And that passion, so this is sexual passion, that passion drives him to look for her. Now, Ibn Arabi will talk about this desire to need and desire to be complete. In Chapter of Love, he looks at the archetypical position of Majnun, so Majnun Layla. And then he says in this poem, Majnun's love has no populated, flourishing abode in him where she lives, where Layla lives. He has nothing but complaints about distance and separation from her. I am his opposite because my beloved is in my image-making realm, so he never ceases being near. My beloved is from me and in me and with me. So why would I say, woe is me, woe is me? Okay. And the other kind of love, the Eve-based love, so in that previous slide, I don't have any illustration because I have never had a taste of that Adamic love and yearning. My taste has always been an Eve-based tasting. So so that separation, when the image is separate from the one looking at the mirror. So Ibn Arabi says that Eve yearns for Adam because he is her home from which she was configured. So this Eve-based love and yearning is the image separated from the one looking, and then wanting to return to the one looking, return from where she had been, where she came from. Thus, the love of Eve is the love of the home, and the love of Adam is the love of himself. So Adam wants to become complete again, whereas Eve wants to return to the place she was after the separation that was caused by this separation, this abandonment. And so there's the qawwali or poems or songs that have always pulled me are ones which are, I'll call them Eve-based songs or Eve-based poems. And this is in the subcontinent, the tradition of when you speak from the Eve-based place, it's like the Hiranja story and then Majnun Layla elsewhere. After a night of union and ecstasy, so this is the night of union and ecstasy, that where the lover has come, but it's also after having been in the one who is looking at the mirror, and now you're separate. You wake up that morning separate, and there's separation and loss and abandonment and calling out and crying. So this is the mode that comes through with this Eve-based love. And we have my very good friend in Lahore, I think, is on right now. And so, but I'll go ahead and try to pronounce the Punjabi. Chetiaon dawada karke bhul gaya yaar tarikan. So after promising to come to me quickly, you have forgotten the date. So you haven't, so we had that time together, the union and the ecstasy, and now this next morning, you're gone. And then I fell in love with a man who cares nothing for me, so I am reduced to sobbing here by myself. Luka luka rona pegia. And so this is the Eve-based poetry, which is the feeling of abandonment. There was fullness and ecstasy and union, and now there's separation and abandonment. And as a child, I became pretty much very explicitly aware of all of this abandonment issues, as it were, at about 10 years old. And at 10 years old, the books that I kept reading over and over again would be Count of Monte Cristo, who is someone who is alone, isolated in the dungeon. And when he leaves the dungeon, he severs all ties and connection. No one knows who he is. And so he goes through the world unknown. No one knows who he is. Colin Fletcher's book, Walk Through Time, which is when he traveled from one end of the Grand Canyon to the other all alone. And then Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, of course, created, separated, abandoned, and then doomed to walk alone. And so this last sentence from the book, he sprung from the cabin window as he said this upon the ice raft which lay close to the vessel. He was soon borne away by the waves and lost in darkness and distance. Also, of course, My Side of the Mountain, which is the one where the kid runs away and spends a year or whatever completely by himself in the forest, and The Boy Who Sailed Around the World Alone. So you can see where all of this is going. So these were the books that I read, and understanding explicitly that this was a situation of abandonment, separation, and wanting to find this return. Now this finding the return, what happens, what Ibn Arabi tells us is that the path to return is one which is the site of return, that is the divine, is always putting out for us things to attract us. Is the way that God calls us back to the return is setting things before us that we are attracted to and we are drawn to. And often we won't know why we're drawn to this. We won't be aware that we're drawn to something special, but we'll know that this is something here that's special. I need to be here. And that is the call back. And so this is so he interprets then this verse from Quran in the most beautifully positive way. So like a mirage in the empty desert, the thirsty one reckons is water. So like a mirage in the empty desert, the thirsty one reckons is water, until when he reaches, he finds nothing. But he finds God before him, and who fulfills him completely, and who is swift in fulfilling sufficiency. So these mirages are the things that are put before us to attract us, to lead us to where we need to go. And when we reach there, to the mirage, the thing that we thought we were going for, we find nothing. But suddenly we find God. So this is the call. This is the way it comes back. And this, the Lawrence strange attractor there. And so, yeah, so these attractors, so I can, there are a few arcs. Everyone will have many arcs in their story or their search and their seeking. I have an arch that kind of goes from Estonia through Indus Valley to the Maldives. And I then was very interested late in life to find out that Vikings, this tiger shell, something like that, was my favorite object as a child, and especially in this 10-year-old time. And I found out that Viking burials have these cowrie shells that are coming from Maldives. And apparently there would be trade coming from the north to Astrakhan in this kind of center of this arc. And then there would be trade from the south up to Astrakhan. So this is how this arc actually historically was completed. And so, my father's side are Estonians and Germans in Estonia. My mother's sides are Mennonites from Russia and Holland. So I was, as a child, very fascinated in Vikings, and not just the Vikings, but the Minnesota Vikings. And so my heroes were, Alan Page, Carl Eller, the Minnesota Vikings. So these things develop as we grow older. Let me make sure. And so right now we'll listen to I've asked Lishan to talk about this mirage and this journey mirage. And so we'll be hearing her voice in just a minute, if I can get everything working out here. And this is where I'll need some thumbs up to make sure I'm hearing things correctly. So like a mirage in the empty desert, the thirsty one reckons is water, until when he reaches, he finds nothing. But he finds God before him, and who fulfills him completely. and who is swift in fulfilling sufficiency. So as soon as you hear something, Abdul Haq and Klaus, I see your picture. Give me the thumbs up as soon as you hear something.
The two play, tell secrets, eat sweets, and she tells him about the world she has seen outside of China. The next scene she remembers is his deathbed, covered by a very beautiful handmade quilt. These are her earliest memories, very blurred, but the only remnants of a distant past and place, like a dream of a distant home that never became hers. I went to the temple to see your future, her grandmother says. What did you hear? She answers, the message said, the jade is wrapped in hard stone, but something will make it break one day. And only through the breaking will the jade appear. She smiled and said, thank you. Is this journey circular, or maybe a loop, or is it seemingly a spiral? A mirage, so beautiful and so close. As she moves closer, it keeps shifting, appearing, disappearing, reappearing, until she finds nothing. And she repeats and repeats until she finds something she never thought would find her. All people, events, moments, and paths will eventually merge and will eventually make perfect sense in due time and place. She didn't know that in her name itself she will find 3 elements: the verb to be slow, the subject, the jasmine flower, and the family name, grateful. Sarah Ahmed said, home is somewhere. It is indeed elsewhere, but it is also where the subject is going. Home becomes the impossibility and necessity of the subject's future. One never gets there, but is always getting there, rather than the past that binds the subject to a given place. And the messenger, may peace be upon him, said, be in this world as though you were a stranger or a wayfarer.
Okay, thank you. So, and I think the 2 images of wayfarer, the stranger, and love become the images that we see, throughout the Sufi history, and the Sufi path of being a stranger and not being where they are supposed to be, not being in their home, and the way they know that they have to, the path that they know they have to follow is the path of love. So the one path of love that Ibn Arabi talks about is animal or life-based love. So animal is hayawan and life is hay. So these are the same word. And he has this passage. The animal spirit, the spirit animated in nature-based forms, is nothing but that breath. And each breath is then the spirit of each one of the 2 breathers, in and out. And by spirit, the one who kisses him revives him during the moment of sighing, respiration, and kissing. Then what had been a spirit belonging to Zayd begins to become a spirit belonging to Amr, through breath exiting from the one who loves. Thus the spirit takes on the formal shape of love, and the pleasure of love comes with it. When it becomes a spirit in this person to whom it is transferring, and the breath of the other starts to become a spirit in this other, you express that as 2 individuals becoming unified, each one to the other. And then it is correct for you to say, I am the one I love, and the one I love is I. This is the utmost endpoint of spirit-based love in the nature-based form. It is the statement in the Qasid at the first part of the chapter spirit to spirit, body to body prone. And what I've learned from Bhakti is that this moment, as you see in the illustration of when the circle of the dervishes comes together and the high, 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 she always says it's the one breath, one life, one breath, one life. So this is how the Sufis produce this return of love by the breathing, high, 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 one breath, one life. So that's the ultimate of spirit-based love in a nature-based form. And the other divine love is the one when you love what the beloved loves, not because it fits you or it's in your nature to love it, but you love it because the beloved loves. And this is the lake in Geneva where my Oma, my grandmother, would take me fishing when I was a kid. And someone had asked her, said to her, "Oh, you must really like fishing a lot." And she said in German, thinking I wouldn't hear it and understand, "No, I don't like fishing at all, but Eric, he loves to fish." And so that's divine love. When you love what the beloved loves, even though your nature, it has no reference to your own nature. In the same way, we are pleased with God's fate for us, decision for us. We're not pleased by what he gives us, the thing itself, but we are grateful and content that it was God's decision. And that makes it, that's how we can handle it, because we have divine love for our beloved, for God. Okay. So whenever I began to really plunge into sort of an articulate understanding of what was going on with me as a kid, later on in life, I studied the Hadith very, very deeply, and especially Musnad Imam Hanbal. This is the Hadith collection of thousands and thousands of Hadith, and often in like 20 or 22 volumes. And 2,326 of these Hadith are Qalat Aisha. Aisha says. So we have 2,326 statements from Aisha, from a woman from Arabia from 1,400 years ago. So it's just amazing. And this is, the reason I could see or explain to myself why I was so avid in studying the Hadith was, if I was going to make demands of the divine, that is, I'm going to say, I don't stand for this situation. I need an answer. I need a return. And if I was going to make such, strong demands, then it was only appropriate that I followed the divine commands meticulously. And this demands is something I'm right now having to figure out how to translate all this. The word sala, to ask, or demand. So it goes all the way from asking, which is very polite and nice, all the way to demand, which is, very strong. And in fact, Ibn Arabi says our dua, our prayers are imperatives. They are imperatives. We're actually commanding God to do something. And we're commanding God. And so, but because it's a command and because it is so strong, we call it a dua. We call it a request. We call it a prayer. But it is, at the basis, it is an imperative. It's a demand. And so Ibn Arabi reports this story about Hadith. And Ibn Arabi was also known very much as a scholar of Hadith. He said, "I saw a man of the integrated ones after his death in a dream. I asked him, 'What did you see over there?' He mentioned many things. And among them, he said, 'I have seen books put low and books raised high.' I asked him, 'What were these books raised high?' He replied to me, 'These were books of Hadith.' So I asked him, 'And what were these books put low?' He replied to me, 'These were books of Rai, of opinion, waiting until their authors are asked to account for them. I saw the matter to be one of great intensity.'" And then Ibn Arabi has this one statement: "Learn, may God give you success, that the Sharia is the clear middle path beaten down, the middle of the path of the felicitous and a way of felicity. Who walks on her is saved, and who abandons her is destroyed. And this verse, then, this is why it's going to be difficult whenever I come to these statements. They ask of whoever is in the heavens and the earth for their being every day, who is in a brilliant, shining radiance, providing each creation, each moment its being. So this asking is actually not polite. It's a demand. That is, everything in the heavens and the earth is demanding of God their being. It's like when you're not very thirsty and someone has a glass of water, you say, may I have that glass of water? I'm asking you for a glass of water. But if you're desperately thirsty, you don't ask anymore. You demand. You say, give me that glass of water. So that demand is the root of all of our prayers. And I thought, if I'm going to be demanding something so gigantic from the divine, then it would be only proper for me to do what needs to be done, that what the beloved is asked to do. And we have today on the Zoom right now, one of the participants is the one who wrote this to me March 20th, 1999. And and it was a memorable day, a special day at the tomb of Bole Shah. Kasur is south, I guess, of Lahore, and Bole Shah is the Punjabi Sufi saint. And the story behind that is that Javed he said, let's go to Bole Shah tomorrow. So we said, yeah, let's do that. And we met a friend in Lahore, and at the friend's house, and I asked her, and she asked me, so what are you guys doing tomorrow? And I said, well, we're going to go see Bole Shah. And she said, well, we're going too, but we're taking Abda Parveen. So we said, okay, we'll all go. And so we all went together and ended up at Bole Shah's tomb. And I'll see if I can say all this quickly enough. So that's a picture of Abda Parveen, and this is a picture of the tomb of Bole Shah. And so that morning, Abda Parveen had her head down, her veil, and then after a long time, maybe 45 minutes or more of heart shattering, and Ibn Arabi cites this hadith very often for us, that Allah says, I am with the shattered of hearts. Now the shatter of hearts, the munkasira, the shattered of hearts. So if I break my arm, that's called breaking. And if the heals a bit and then it breaks again, that's called shattering. And so shattering is when you just kept getting hit and hit and hit and hit. So this hit and hit and hit, Abda Parveen, then she lifts her veil and started singing the qasidas, the songs, the poems of Bole Shah. And so when I went into the tomb, I heard something like, Ho gaya kaam, or it's been done, or it's taken care of. So, and then you can see these islands up there, the green. So it's been taken care of. So I went to, then I flew a few days later to Karachi, and a friend met me. I was staying with them. And the first thing I said was, I've just been to Kasur, Bole Shah's tomb, and Abda Parveen was there. And he said, is that right? I just saw Abda Parveen over there. So we run through the airport to try to see her again. And when we get to the end, I look up and there's a gate sign, and the gate sign says Male, PK flight something, 1320, leaving at 1320. So Male. Okay, so a few months later, a friend back in Santa Fe, a friend said, I've just heard that there's no malaria in the Maldives. And I said, whoa, I'm supposed to be in the Maldives. So I sold my motorbike and went to Male. And that's another story. So, and this passage here, this way back up to the front, the here I am. So the feeling of the lover is, I weep if they stay away from yearning desire for them, and I weep when they get nearer, fearful of separation. And the Ibn Arabi said, this is the lot of whoever loves another other than his own ayn, and takes the existence of the ayn of his beloved to be something external to him. So if you believe your beloved is external to you, you're in trouble. But if he loved God, that would not be his situation. The one who loves God is not fearful of separation, How can anything which is constantly clinging to you be split apart from you? You are in his grasp, never falling out. And whatever you see, it is your beloved. And he is closer to him than the jugular vein. And you did not throw when you threw, but God threw. So what is separation when there is nothing in existence but who? So now we have Ilahi, and I'll turn this over to Baki and Nora to sing this Ilahi.
Oh, Sultan, you are near and near and even nearer than the Oh, who else can I see? None but you. Who else can I be but you? Your presence without sense, without division. Oh, my Sultan, nearer than my central life, you hold out secrets. I live in you as your family. Yahai! Oh, Sultan of love, building your love, my building. Mrs. Afira, my God, is yours and all. This my only sacrifice, pure praise, without praise, mercy, without our love. Oh, my soul, nearer than my central life, like Eden, like Jonah. I live in you as your prophet.
Thank you. Thank you. So Waqiya, this is, to pronounce it in the non-Urdu way, Nijamuddin. Nijamuddin's tomb. When I was there not too long ago, there was a sudden, I saw a guide from the side of my eye. It was sudden, it was completely immersive. There was a burst of communication. And this Waqiya is defined among the Sufis as the Waqiya is, she is, so we can translate this event, or I put in parentheses, spiritual event, because it's not like a political event. She is with the Sufis, that which the traveler sees during praising dhikr and plunging into a state with God, where the senses are hidden. One is between sleeping and waking. The incoming experience which sinks flush against the heart from the unseen world, this is the Waqiya, in whatever mode it may be, whether gentle or rough. So this is the Waqiya, a burst of communication. Now I'll ask Omer to recite this part of the Quran for us.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. O soul that has attained to inner peace, return to your sustainer, well-pleased and well-pleasing. Enter then with my righteous servants and enter my paradise. صدق الله العظيم.
So this is the call back, come back. So return, call, and come back to your cherisher. And so it happens when there's the nafs, when she is mutmainna. So that is this lowland. It's been depressed. It's been put down. It's at rest and it's unruffled. And this is then relates back again to that shattering of hearts. It relates back to the arrogance, the ego, the arrogant ego being cut by the flashing sword of love. So love is the mode which reduces arrogance to downness, depression, and lowness, and it makes the nafs down and low in such a way that at that moment the cherisher calls, says, "Come back to me." And then we come back, and we come back with these devoted slaves or devoted creatures. So it's been we've been talking about veils and separations and
divine beauty is never separate from my reality. Divine beauty is never separate from all I see. The fragrance is never separate from the rose. The flood tide is never separate from the sea. Divine beauty is never separate from my reality. Divine beauty is never separate from all I see. The honey is never separate from the comb. The servant is never separate from the Lord. Divine beauty is never separate from my reality. Divine beauty is never separate from all I see. The true heart is never separate from the true faith. The dervish is never separate from the true sheikh. Divine beauty is never separate from my reality. Divine beauty is never separate from all I see.
Thank you. So you've seen this this illustration before. It's in a sense from a one part of a dream, which I'll say here. And so in this dream, a guide says, "I'll take you home, but not with me." And so once I say, "Well, I don't like it, but I accept the but not with me," suddenly I plunge towards the neck, and there's a sea of veils, and I'm plunging through seas of veils, veils and veils and veils and veils, and then all black, all light. All black, all light. And Ibn Arabi talks about this a few times, the all black, all light. And if you think to a dark movie theater, that the movie projection is the light is cast to the screen, and so the screen is showing the projection of this light. And so and then in this dark movie theater, if you raise your hand up there in the middle of it, your hand will suddenly be illuminated. The light will hit your hand. So that's why Ibn Arabi says this is zulm, which is light blocking. So the hand blocks the light, and suddenly the light is visible. So until the hand is there, there's no visible light. So it's all black, all light. And I'll ask Klaus to go ahead and recite this poem.
What are words? It is the sound. What is this sound? The overtones, the echo. And Rumi said, peace and blessings, the key to will. Receiving the present is presence. Knowing we are loved reveals the lover. Hearing, seeing, giving, dancing in the pool of water, and singing. Is this the echo or the sound?
Thank you. So knowing we are loved reveals the lover. Let's look at that. Ibn Arabi has this poem. It is yourself you witness, you precious gem, blessed by means of yourself. It is yourself you witness, you precious gem, blessed by means of yourself. So look into the mirror, you will see me. So look into the mirror, you will see me. And with that, Ibn Arabi then often will say something like, now, if you are ignorant of yourself, which is after all the closest thing to you, then you are even more ignorant of the other, or what else, of everything else. So this is the find out and see yourself so that you will see your cherisher. And now we can hear from a song from Farida and Fribourg.
In love with me.
Okay. So thank you. Thank you for being with all of this.
Mm.
Hello, Sheikha.
Salam alaikum, Shweb. I'm so sorry that Ali and I don't know, we were engaged and came on late. So, but we picked up the thread when you were speaking of, you know, the separation and union and the mirror and the self and what, but there was something you said that I didn't quite grasp. You said, how can we be separate from ever presence, you know, the being who's always there? Of course, that brings to mind many Sufi poems who were complaining of separation. So you could say it's a different state than that's being shown that is afflicting the lover's heart. But then you went on, I mean, so I want to ask about that. And then you went on and said that something like, but in fana is separation, or there was separation, but is it extinction? Or I didn't quite catch that. Very fascinating, though quite amazing. I will listen to the whole talk later.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's all our poetry is the yearning and the separation. And what's so amazing is that Ibn Arabi can write poetry even from another place, saying that all of those people who they can't find their love and their love is so far away and they're so separate, it says, I'm opposite of that. I have my love right here. And so, of course, it is that.
That's good for us to know.
My love is right here. Every time I look in the mirror, I see my love. And so this is you are witnessing yourself. So look in the mirror and see me.
Yeah.
But
I want to interject something from a personal experience there. We were in Santa Fe with Sheikh Muzaffar, with Effendi. And we were happened to be in the kind of dressing room area, I don't know, after or before Zikr. And he was looking in the mirror, literally, with such love, you know, and, you know, he was looking at himself. And I mean, we were all present, so presumably we were all part of that self. So, yes, alhamdulillah. But continue, sorry, Shweb.
no, well, so I think, right. So it's the back and forth, and that's what we hear in the song, and we heard in the poem, and in the ilahis. It's the back and forth, and I think also Lishan's description of the mirage. It's you return, but then you need to return again, and so every new creation is every tajalli, is every moment when we are separate, but then we come back again, separate and come back again. So that separation is there for that moment. Once the return has come, then the separation return happens quickly. So Ibn Arabi says, so the mystics, the Arafin, they don't have much insanity with love, because they are very sure, they know deeply that God is not separate from them. So they feel it instantly, but that doesn't take them into a destructive yearning. They know that they'll return in that next moment. And so in a sense so Allah is teaching us how to be able to be seeing Allah's self. You need to be separate or I can't see you. And then that separation will be painful, but it's for the return. And then to go.
But is the return in the manifestation, or the return is in the extinction, the moment of extinction?
Well, it can take place on these different levels. I was just thinking again about the Truman Show. What a great movie! When the boat that he's on splits and pierces the reality, the fabric of reality that he's in. So for that is the awakening of the soul. And so when the soul awakens, it pierces through the reality, goes behind the curtain. But then Allah says, here you are behind the curtain, but the whole point is to see you, is to see me. So sends you back across to the other side of the curtain again.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Wow, how precious. I mean, so, so precious. Thank you. Ooh. Ooh.
Shuaib, I have a question about the prayer, because I've always felt, who am I to make a demand of Allah? And so I ask, I request, I don't demand it. It doesn't seem, I mean, and I don't like praying for a specific thing, because I think I don't know what's best. My mind can't know what's best. So I pray that someone be blessed or whatever in a general sense, because I can't know what that blessing looks like. So can you say more about the imperative of the prayer?
Yeah. You know, this is, I mean, what I've learned from Ibn Arabi, and he'll say that the dua, the prayer that is most effective is the one that is most intense. So in other words, right before you're crashing into something, that prayer that you give, save me from this, is going to be the one that's answered. So it's the most intensity that you give to the prayer is the one, is commensurate with what comes back. And so this great need and great demand is the one that Allah is seeking from us, because every moment we are demanding our being. We're not saying, may I please have a sip of water, or may I please have some being. We're saying, we're demanding it. We're saying, this is being is all good and non-being is all bad. So I want and desire and demand my next being. And so this demand is the one that puts us directly into the relationship with the divine, the communication with the divine. And so the trials of Job's complaining to God is what makes him praised by God. He's praised by God because he complains to God. And Ibn Arabi says, if I take something God gives me, afflicts me with, and I take it just really steadfastly and soberly and all of that, he says, that's actually a discourtesy, because it's saying, you know, is that the best you've got? You know, so it's a discourtesy to accept these things. The courtesy is to be like Job and complain immediately to God and say, that's too much for me. So over the years, I've been very fast to say, that's too much for me, and very quick to say, that's hurting a little bit. I think it's time for you to take that away. So, and that's the communication. And so in a sense, I think we had that in one of our sessions. This establishment of communication is why these pains come to us and why the complaints are given.
Right. Reminds me.
But if I could just follow up, I mean, that sounds like the distinction between Hafiz and Rumi's poetry. I mean, Rumi is saying yes to everything, and Hafiz is saying, how dare you, God? You know, how dare you do this? So you're kind of saying Ibn Arabi is more on the Hafiz side of how to receive life.
Yeah, no, it's very direct. It's very direct, and so because but Ibn Arabi is telling us, so that's why we have in the law, we have so many details, so that like permitted things. So we don't just do the permitted things because they're neutral and we're just doing it. You're saying, I'm doing this permitted thing because it is permitted by God, and I am therefore obeying a command of God. So I'm writing my pen at this angle because that's permitted, and I'm doing it because God has permitted me to do this. And so so the communication is there, not only for the forbidden and the required, but for the completely permitted as well.
Thank you.
But Shweb, we all know, we all have this experience that sometimes no matter what we ask or how many times, the answer does not come in the form that we would like. So the next step is to surrender that Allah has something else in mind for that person, for us. You know, in a situation where we are wishing someone to be well and it's not happening, or at least in the term we would like, of course, which is from a place of maybe ego, but also deep heart, deep caring for a person. So what do? We just wait and just stop asking the same prayer, and I'll just trust, or try to trust that no matter how it looks like, even if it's a very terrible situation, the answer hasn't come, or at least in the form we would like. So what is as Sufis, as dervishes, we probably do like Rumi, you know, the guess, like every situation is a teacher. Or do we continue asking? Because I don't know if you have an answer to that.
Yeah. Well, Ibn Arabi keeps pointing us to it's the establishment of communication. So the response is that it's going to be there, and then he gives that very sort of painful story that when Allah is surrounded by the higher angelic host, and someone makes a prayer, an imperative, and God says to the angels, resolve that one's problem quickly. I can't stand to hear the voice. But then when the beloved is asking for prayers, God says to the angels, delay in responding to his request because I love to hear his voice. So what's needed is the burst of communication. And so then, and so this is how and then we get into once we get used to it, when we learn how to do it all the time, as someone like you who is constantly in prayer, so being ever in the salat is being ever in the prayer, is being ever also in the communication with the divine. And so what happens is, the X happens or Y happens, but what always happens is the communication is open. So.
I'm reminded of one of the Arifin who there'd been a drought, and he went outside and he shouted. He said, "If you don't send water, you don't send rain, I will become very angry." And there was a small cloud in the distance, and it expanded and filled the whole of the sky, and the water flew down, just drenched the whole ground.
Yeah, that's why all of the stories that when you see someone who is going to the Hadrat, to the Sufi circle, says ask them at that moment, because they are the site of, they're the mujib, the site of the jawab, the site of the response. So the place where that response is going to be is just now walking over there. Yeah.
Dr. Winkel.
Thank you so much. So rich. Amazing.
I have a question, Dr. Winkel, if I might.
Armando, yeah, yes.
Because I was meditating on these previous questions regarding the supplication, the dua, and the answer, and such and such. Will it be relevant to speak of some concepts such as istidat, for instance, preparedness and receptivity, Kabul, in the sense that I think what Ibn Arabi mentions that the dua might be answered or might not be answered, and it depends on the preparedness. And if I'm not wrong, the preparedness is related to ontologically to the Ain Tabita. No? So it's the servant needs to know what his preparedness is in order to ask for first. Otherwise, the answer might not come. Is that right? Something like, would you say we can explore this dimension of istidat, this concept of istidat?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things to focus on when we're on the path, is to be looking at this idea of preparation. In a sense, in the kind of what I said in those slides about the hadith study, for me that was a preparation. That was a way to prepare myself. And so little did I know. And then it turned out to be quite valuable when I'm translating Ibn Arabi to know that, oh, this is a hadith, so where it comes from. And if you think of the other words of imdad and medet, so in Turkish it's pronounced medet, so give me help. And imdad is the extension of help. So Ibn Arabi says that the right hand that comes to you the right hand comes to you either at the Kaaba or from the sheikh, from the guide. The right hand comes to you and you grab that right hand. And that right hand is imdad, it's been extended. So we also looked at the idea of the ink is called midad, so that the ink is dipped into the inkwell and then it extends and brings the ink into some other place. And so that's imdad and midad, and then medet. So help is extend me the right hand. So this is why, the right hand that's extended to us, we take this right hand in bayah and say, and this right hand is telling us, I will pull you out of the ocean and I will take you where you need to go. So when we see the right hand, we take it. And that's also the Sufi poems of the love of the right hand that's been extended. So extended imdad, medet, help. And so the crying for help is crying for the extension of the right hand to come.
Thank you.
And if I could just say, have a hello to Javed is right there. His daughter is Saliha Javed, and that's him. It's been many years since I've seen him, but can never forget every moment. And with Javed was telling me about a near-death experience that he had, I guess, very long ago when you were quite young, and that description to me guided me into so many of my studies. What is it to pierce this veil? What is it to see this other side? And getting that from the NDE, the near-death experience that you told me about. So, alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum, Eric, Shoaib.
Yes, Khadija.
I want to thank you for opening your heart to us. It was really, really beautiful. And also, I'm a little bit, I need just a little explanation. So we need to be pleased with Allah. But on the other hand, being pleased can be kind of discordious. Like, how do we find the balance? Thank you.
Yeah, and the only way I understood this part of Ibn Arabi is from the chapter on love, when everything became so much clearer when he could describe it in terms of love. So when you love someone, your beloved, it's not part of your nature. It's a divine. If it's a divine love, then whatever your beloved does doesn't increase or decrease your love. Whereas for nature-based love, if I have nature-based love, then things that go against my nature will decrease my love, and things that go with my nature will increase my love. But divine love, whatever the person does, whatever the beloved does, you accept and you love, because the beloved does that and wants that, not because it suits me naturally or by my nature. And so this is when my grandmother says, I don't like fishing, but Eric likes fishing, so that's why we go fishing. This is not because her nature, and so that's divine love. And then the divine love on the divine side to us is that when God has someone who is beloved, and the hadith then is this person does something offensive and then returns to God and says, I ask your forgiveness, I've done something offensive. And God says, I forgive you. And then the person does something offensive and comes back and says, I've done something offended. I ask your forgiveness. And God says, I forgive you. And then eventually God says, do whatever you like. I have already forgiven you. And that's when the beloved is the object of divine love, that it doesn't matter what that person does, they are beloved. And then, so then the reverse of that is whatever God does to me, if God is my beloved, then whatever God does is beloved to me. So it's not that my nature likes it or doesn't like it. It's that God decided to do that. So I love that because my beloved wanted to do that.
Shuaib, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. Okay, good. I am so touched, and the communication is so deep in opening me up fully to what is right now, and the richness of this. We have a tendency to go to our mind to try to understand these things that really are beyond the thinking. And so what was presented for me, you did in such a skillful way as to unite them together very, very strongly. And I just feel that now I want to pass that on so that you can be aware of the potency and the authenticity of what you've given.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Eric. I would like to thank. Can you hear me? Yeah, I would like to thanks for the wonderful talk and excellent translation of Futuhat. Really, I'm a bit meticulous in translation, like the word I guess waswas. So I I really enjoyed. Yeah, I just want to mention something about the dua, or demanding for things to happen. I believe Ibn Arabi says that ultimately your dua will get accepted. It may be later, or even it may be on the other world, but I think that's just a comment.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, certainly the timing is a big issue. Thank you. Yeah, we have on the chat a question: can we have two or more loves all at the same time? And Ibn Arabi is very clear on this. There's only one love. You only love one, and you may call that beloved many names. So you can have many names of your beloved, but there is only one beloved that you have. And so this is why even in popular music and songs, it's always all-consuming. It's always one. And Ibn Arabi takes the one poem about there are these women who have my reins. In other words, they have these women that this man loves. They have his reins. They can pull him wherever they need to go. And Ibn Arabi says, you see, that pulling of the reins is singular. So that is, all of them have the same place that they pull this person. And so because that same place is one, there is only one beloved. And so Ibn Arabi says, and therefore, excuse me if you hear me talk of love for Fatima and Inayat and Zainab, there is only one beloved. And this is because we have a jealous God. And so all our worship goes to God. And so La ilaha illallah means there's nothing out there to be worshipped, but it's God. And then there's nothing out there to be loved, but it's God. Okay. Yeah, I think, let me see if I can help. Javed is going to. Okay, we'll
अनम्यूट तो कर दिया है हमने.
Okay, ठीक है, सुना.
Hi Eric.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we got you.
Okay, all right.
Now we got you.
It's very, 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 very special experience to see you and witness the activities that you're indulging in, and all the good friends that listen. I think it's a kind of a blessing. It's a blessing, at least for me, and it's very nice too. I had a few questions, but sometimes if you reflect upon them, and then we can share some. Well, one is what is a miracle, and what is the mechanism? You see, and for example, one of the miracles is Shakal Qamar. And the Prophet supposedly, raised his finger up and the moon. So now, if we go on through science, that thing doesn't happen. You see. So I spent quite a bit of effort of all kinds to find out more about it. And then finally, the mystery was solved. So it did happen, you see. It did happen, but not the way we imagine it. People did see that happen, and the moon was about 6 or 7 days old, and at least 1/3 of it was split through it, and so on. So maybe sometime I can just explain or describe the answer that I found. But the anatomy of a miracle, how does it happen, or does it happen? Because I'm a witness to it, and I think you have witnessed many, experienced many miracles. So sometimes would be interesting if you talk about that. And then there's another thing that you see, I'm sitting here very far from you, very far from you. But you see, sitting here, listening to what you have been saying and what brothers and sisters have been saying, or the message they have been giving, it's I feel so peaceful sitting so far away from you. I mean it. It is so peaceful. See, and how this feeling comes across, I tell you, I don't have the words to the peace that I experienced while I was listening to you and the other brothers and sisters. It's fantastic. So and so maybe sometime if you can shed some light on the anatomy of a miracle, or what is a miracle, or and so on. Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, there's someone who's been talking about the splitting of the moon, and it's something I'll really want to look at some more. So I'll be in touch with you for that, inshallah.
I spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a time when it was in weaker contact, but the answer came, and it did happen, and yet it did not happen.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Thank you. Happen and not the way we think it happens, right? Right. Yeah, so it's a matter of perspective then. Okay.
And then the other thing is this, you experienced, I think, also, this matter of shrines.
Mm-hmm.
Shrines, people go and pray there, and they have their own requests, and so on and so forth. And some people get things off of their chest, things are bothering them. But the fantastic thing is that miracles do take place off of these shrines. And if a person is praying, say in the mosque or at his home and so on, he is making a dua or, requesting something from Allah. And he does the same thing from a shrine. His wish is granted. See? So what is so special about that place? And I've seen that happen time and again. But so sometimes if you can shed some light,
Yeah, we've looked at that as the thinning of the membrane, because in these shrines, people are fed. They're fed food, and they're fed they're fed food, and they're fed spiritual nourishment, all the kinds of physical nourishment. And so, because they're fed, and because they're asking so desperately and so intensely, that whole membrane gets thinned out, and things happen that are very miraculous.
So some of the connection is facilitated.
Right. The connection
from the spot.
Okay.
Well,
it's so good to see you, Javed.
Yes. Thank you. May Allah bless you.
Yeah,
may Allah bless you. It's a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful experience to have gone through all this. And it's may Allah be with you. Allah bless you. Thank you.